everyone, and welcome to day 4 of Vlog Everyday in August. The first products that I'm going to mention are Copic Markers, which are very popular. They are what I believe manga artists use a lot. It's a Japanese company. I believe they have also headquarters here in the US that I believe are in Portland, Oregon. Not sure, but I think so. And I absolutely love Copics. They are, I think, alcohol-based markers, which is very nice because they blend very, very well together and allow you to do a lot of very cool effects. You have to use a paper that is specific for markers though, or Bristol paper. It's my favorite paper to use with the Copic markers because they will bleed right through. If your paper is too thin, it's definitely going to go through. And if you're using like mixed media paper, it's going to absorb and you're actually going to spend a lot more ink and it's going to be a lot harder to blend. So these are the ones that I have. I have the ones that are called the sketch markers, and I really like them. The standard ones, you can change the nibs, that's why I say standard ones, but when you buy them, you have one end that is like this, like chiseled, and the other end is a brush tip like this one. So it allows for a lot of very different effects, and I have a relatively large collection. Nowhere near as large as having all of the markers, but I have a fair amount of them. This is a very, very, very small portion that I have here in my hands. These are some of my favorite like go-to colors. So the style of my illustrations, I tend to line my work. It probably comes from the fact that I grew up being very influenced by graphic novels, particularly French and Belgian graphic novels. So I tend to line my work, and some of my favorite tools to do the line work. I also love to do just lines, black and white. But here are some of the things, the tools that I use for lining. The first one are also very popular. They are from the brand, I believe it's Sakura, and they are the Pigma Micron. They have them in different thicknesses. I like them a lot because they rarely bleed, which means that if I line the work first, which sometimes I do, sometimes I line it after, but if I line it first and I apply the Copic marker after, as long as I've waited for these to dry, usually they're not gonna like smudge or bleed with the markers. Another of my favorites for lining is from the brand Copic. Copic has their multi-liners and they have them in many colors. I have the black ones just because that's what I tend to prefer. I wouldn't mind trying, I don't know if they have a sepia or maybe a red one. I would also love to try that. But also permanent ink, also won't smudge, won't bleed. Very, very nice. And they also have in different thicknesses, but I have the 0.1 and I love it. And then I have these. These, I don't even know how to describe them. They're from the brand Rotring. Rotring is one of my favorite brands when it comes to pens and like line work. And this is called the Rapidograph. They also have an isograph, but the difference I believe is like the isograph you have to refill the ink yourself, whereas these you can just put a cartridge. So it comes with a cartridge like this, so you don't have to, you know, worry or bother with refilling the ink yourself. And I don't know if you can see how freaking tiny the tip is. Like, I don't know if it comes through on camera. It is super, super thin. I saw somebody use these on Twitch, and the person using them, I will link it down below because I don't remember his name at the moment. But he was explaining that the reason why he likes these ones better than the Pigma Micron is because these, with use, the type of tip that they have is gonna get kind of like used on one side, and so the thickness won't be consistent. Whereas these, because the tip is mostly metal, the thickness of the line is always consistent. They're a lot more expensive from the fact that, you know, you will rarely replace the tip. and you know, you can refill the ink, so it's not like you're tossing it away once you're done with it. So they are considerably more expensive, but the line is absolutely consistent. However, what I have noticed, because I travel with these a lot, is that if I haven't used them for a while, sometimes when I start using them again, it would kind of like puke ink. I don't know how else to describe it. So what I will do is just like draw little lines on a side paper, so I can make sure that once I'm actually drawing on my drawing, it will absolutely not like spill everywhere. The other thing with these, and the reason why if I use them, I will use them to line after I've put the color. It's because these do tend to smudge if I put color over them. So I absolutely love their consistency, and I love to use them for just like line sketches. If I line work with these, I will definitely do it after the color. Same thing with these. This is a fountain pen. It is also from the brand Rotring, and which I'm probably butchering because I believe it's German, so I know I cannot pronounce that word correctly, but it's from their Art Pen series, which are like calligraphy pens, but they also have this one is the extra fine one. They have obviously different thicknesses, and I love using these for lining. I've always loved using fountain pen for drawing, so it's a very different effect, a little more old school, but again, I would use this to line after I have put the color, because it will definitely bleed if I put it before and then apply the color. But this is another one of my favorites. Next, I am going to talk about watercolors. I have been getting a lot into watercolors over the past, I want to say, year or couple years. I absolutely love playing with the transparency. I love the finish. I love the texture of it. My first palette, which is actually the same one that I used to use years ago, and then I kind of like forgot about watercolor, got into markers, and now I'm kind of going back to watercolor, but it's very affordable, and as you can tell, it's well loved, and some of these colors have definitely hit pan. This is the Winsor and Newton. So Winsor and Newton is definitely very affordable. I'm not gonna say it's the best brand because first, I haven't tried enough different brands to give an opinion, but I have heard that some like brands like Sennelier might be like more pigmented or better. I think that Winsor and Newton works very well. I love that they have a lot of like travel palettes that I can take with me everywhere, and maybe it's because I'm so used to using them, I find them very, very reliable. And the other palette that I have, which is a lot more expensive, and I can vouch that the pigments in this other palette, which I've mentioned before in my videos, in some of my favorites, these are fantastic. Threw me off the first time I used them. So this is the Kuretake palette. I believe it's Japanese. I bought it on Amazon, and the pens are like 10 times bigger than the Newton and Winsor ones, and you can already tell just by looking at this that they are very pigmented. The thing is, sometimes watercolors look very pigmented, and then once you put the water in them, they lose that pigment. This is not the case for these ones. Like, they are really, really pigmented. They're absolutely beautiful, but it's true that when you go from Winsor and Newton to this, it takes a little bit of getting used to, just because you have to, you know, the amount of water that you're going to need to use is very different from what Winsor and Newton would require. But yeah, I have absolutely been loving using this one, and I kind of use both in combination because they give different effects to the drawing. So that was it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that this wasn't too boring for you. Yeah, I have a lot of fun sharing little things like that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching.